Welcome to Hoshiai no Sora, or Stars Align. For some reason, Stars Align doesn't seem to be getting as much traction as Hoshiai no Sora, so we're just going to go with that. It's not really an exact translation anyway. It's the Kazuki Akane show about boys playing soft tennis, and we got an exact explanation of what exactly soft tennis is last episode. It's basically tennis but with a squishy ball that's kind of hard when you get hit with it. And last episode, episode 2, we got the payoff of how the payment scheme was going down. He's going to get paid to play tennis, and so he exacts or directs his superior athletic and learning abilities towards this new task of becoming a tennis master. And he goes about that by basically shaming everyone else in the club into thinking that they're inferior to him, and then he has a race with the captain. So far, my youthful, sporty spirit has been ignited by this show, so without further ado, let's get started.
2ゲーム取れば試合は勝ちになる。つまり1試合の過半数のゲームを取ればいいわけだ。
Basically, it's Wii tennis rules. Like in normal tennis, the rules are a little bit more complicated. Like you can get tied at 40-40 deuce, and you have to score like 2 points in a row. And there are tie breaks if you get tied up in the set at 6-all or whatever. In real tennis, it's weird, but let's just go with this weird tennis that they're playing. Ooh, serve and volley. If you've watched Baby Steps at all, you know that there's some players, their whole strategy is to just serve really hard and then run up to the net and just volley right back. The idea is that you miss the return and you don't really get a chance to. Oh my god, I'm such a retard. Okay, here we go. The idea is that you don't get a chance to like set up a complicated shot that would make them miss because they've already like returned it to you really fast. That being said, let's continue. The animation cycle of him gripping the ball, like a lot of people have mentioned that this show is kind of like they're flexing with these weird cycles of animation that really don't have no use being there. Like the people swinging the racket in the first episode was kind of nuts at how fluid it was, and just now him squeezing the ball, like someone make a gif of that because that's a really good Sakuga moment there. Just him like with those fingers and the perspective changes of him turning and everything. Really good animation. For people that like claim to want to be part of a club and like actually play good, they're really picking on this guy, and his only crime has been to actually try to play the game well, which they haven't been doing at all for the past however many years that they've been doing it. And he just shows up and he's actually trying, and they hate that. Now I kind of phrased this in the first episode that we discussed this, that this like philosophy difference between the old members of the club and Katsuragi and Toma is that like they actually believe trying is a good thing, whereas like the other members have this kind of like early 2000s malaise of trying is bad. Like if you don't try at all and if you don't do anything, then you're the cool person because you're so detached that no one can make fun of you because you're not actually involved in anything. It's a defense mechanism used to like minimize your vulnerabilities, whereas actually putting yourself out there and doing something leaves you open for criticism. Like that's the mindset that they've adopted, and it's coming to bite them in the butt when they're actually forced to try at something. When we're going to see they're going to spectacularly fail, hopefully. And rule of threes, we had to play. They had to hit it at Maki 3 different times for Toma to get angry enough to actually say something. Of course, he knows what they're doing. They're trying to make him look bad because this is like the second day he's ever played tennis. This would be the equivalent of giving like a 6th grader a basketball for the first time ever, and then asking them to play a match against you and you going in and dunking on their head. Like that doesn't really get the point across anything more than it does assuage your ego that you're better than a 6th grader. There's no point in doing that. That's what they're trying to do by making him look bad. He's only played soft tennis for 2 days, and Toma knows that, so he's going to teach them a lesson now. And he's the worst kind of person that refuses to participate in anything. It's because the dude actually has talent and he's like able to hit balls that Katsuragi can't return, but he still never tried or did anything meaningful in all his time in the soft tennis club. And now that a new upcoming person who dares to think that they can do anything, rises up, he's come to squash their ego and like make sure that they know their place, which is to do nothing and be below him, who's also not doing anything despite having the potential to do so. He might be even worse than the other people because they're not doing anything but they don't have potential, but he's also not doing anything and he has potential. If you talk to any teachers, they'll tell you this.
敵じゃないよ。あの子はもう部員だよ。
Finally, someone realizes that they're fighting between themselves. It's like two people fighting for a rebound when they're on the same team. Like, who cares who gets it? You're on the same team. Like, you should be helping each other to get better and keep the funding alive for your club, not like fighting against each other for no reason at all.
あんたたち弱すぎる。
But dude, you can't forget that he has an ego. Like, just because he's being picked on doesn't mean he's not arrogant at all. Because we saw in the first episode, after having swung a racket like a grand total of 5 times, he decided to just tell everybody that they're complete crap and what have they been doing with their lives for years and years. You can't remember that this is like his base operating level, is that he thinks he's better than everyone else. Now, that does help him actually do stuff that he shouldn't be able to do. Which in shonen anime has always been like the person who's weirdly good at stuff, aka the transfer student, is also like incredibly humble and self-demeaning in some way. But he's like a normal sports person who's good at sports. They believe they're good at sports, and even if they tell you they're humble, they still deep down believe they're really good at stuff. He's just moved on to the level where he's able to vocalize that to other people. This is an interesting dynamic because people who don't try also don't like being told that they're bad, even though they don't try, but they're still bad. But some people accept it, be like, yeah, I'm bad, but I don't try. These people seem to think, I don't try, but I'm still better than you, seems to be their like baseline. And he's proven that they're not that good because he just beat all of them. And now he's like putting salt into their wound. This is just wonderful.
なるほど。
He's pretty cool as a character. Like he even though he's being paid, he clearly has some interest in actually performing at the soft tennis club. Like he doesn't want to let his he doesn't want to just half-ass it because he's getting paid, and maybe it's like a pride of a person who's getting paid type thing, or it's like a I don't care, even if this is just for the money, I'm gonna give it my full effort, which seems to be beyond most of the club. And now Toma is realizing that he's let the club fall into the state of disrepair, and he blames himself for that, and he's taking it super hard, as you would expect Toma to do. He's that type of like really self-critical person who would do that. And also his home life is not like some simple thing either, because his mom hates him, to put it lightly, because she's reminded of trauma in her past by his very existence. And also we should mention that his older brother Ryoma knows Maki's mom, and she's portrayed as like very young. It's obvious that they're trying to say that she had Maki when she was a teenager, but it's not something they can directly address, I think, because teenage pregnancy is kind of a more sensitive topic in Japan, it seems. But it's clear that that's what they're getting at with this. Oh snap. Oh snap. See, the thing is, you can't engage with the peanut gallery because it just gives them more fuel to come at you with. But he smashed that racket on their head. That seems like a pretty good way to engage with anyone. No one's going to be saying anything back to him for a few years at least, unless he ends up going to jail or something.
彼の背中にある火傷の跡を見られたくないからなんだと思う。火傷の
Yo, what? We didn't know about that. Oh yeah, but they did mention that he doesn't change with them. But it seems like every one of these people in this club has some like very interesting backstory. Like the manager dude who hangs around, he's like romantically interested in Toma, and then like Maki has a single mom. This Itsuki guy, single parent household, but also burn victim. Weird stuff going on here.
お母さんは放心状態で赤ちゃんのいつきの横に
Oof, holy fuck, this show is intense. So far we've had Maki's estranged dad come back and beat him up. We've had Toma's mom who just hates him. We've had Itsuki's mom who actively tried to kill him when he was a baby. This is not an unknown thing. Like, people have been known to have like the opposite of postpartum. It's like they don't identify with their baby at all. They don't see it as a thing. that they should like, even they just see it like as an annoyance, and then it just gets weird after that. It's a severe mental health thing, and not anything that we've seen in any Japanese media ever, which is something that this show seems to be setting out to correct. And then like showing all these kind of broken families, or kind of like more complicated families than we usually see. We usually see like Midoriya's mom, who's all into supporting him. We usually see like A-chan's mom from Baby Steps, who's all into like, if you want to be a pro, go be a pro. Show us that you can do it. That's the kind of family we usually see. Usually two-parent households, supportive of each other and of their kids. And then this show is like, there are real people in this world, right? It's not as so cut and dry as just always having two people at home who love you and support you. Which, hey, get the message out there for sure. Awareness and identifying with experiences that you yourself have experienced in media is always important, so this is really good. That's like a very manly way of saying, I don't want you to leave, I want you to stay, because I'm having fun playing with you. But you can't say that. You got to do it in an indirect way. So this is what Maki's come up with. Nice one, Maki. That's Hoshiai no Sora episode 3 with the jankily recorded outro that we're about to have. This show kind of has me at a loss for words, to be honest, because I feel like a lot of the time this show is just like a well done character drama and there's not really much else to say. But there are of course other shows this season that also have a similar problem. So that's something that we'll deal with over the weeks. It also has the added intricacy of like being a sports anime, which makes it somewhat more complicated to deal with. But like I said earlier this episode, it seems to be going out of its way to show kind of family characteristics and dynamics that we haven't normally seen in anime thus far. And as for the soft tennis part, I feel like they're just flexing because they just wanted some sport and they just Googled all the anime sports that have been covered so far and they're like, what hasn't been done? And then they realized that soft tennis was available. They're like, let's pick the most non-consequential sport ever. Because even Haikyuu with volleyball, which nobody really cares about, there are professional Japanese volleyball players, but I don't think there are any professional soft tennis players. So for whatever it's worth, the show seems to be going out of its way to kind of tell us about soft tennis, a sport that no one really even cares about. And secondly, the character dynamics are to the point where we're getting to know more and more about the people in this club than I ever thought we would, first of all, because think of a normal sports anime like Haikyuu. Like, how much do you actually know about the captain of the Haikyuu volleyball club or whatever? You don't really know that much about him. Like, he's a senior, he exists, you know his personality traits, but you don't really know why he came to be the way that he is, or what moved him to like actually lead the volleyball club, other than that they failed at finals or whatever it is, whatever contrived reason they have for trying again harder this year than they did last year. But with the soft tennis club, it seems very transparent what their motivations are. Those motivations primarily being remaining a club, first of all, and second of all, for Maki, it's more about money. And his mom really doesn't make all that much money, so for him, the motivation is just having a reason to go to a club at all, especially one that seems to be as expensive as tennis is, because if you travel around for any kind of sport, this is one of the big reasons that people from financially less privileged backgrounds don't get to participate in as many sports as they maybe would like to. It's because it's usually expensive to be part of a sport on a higher level than just playing at your school. In basketball, they have AAU. In soccer, I think they have travel teams. And travel teams are basically just where you go to play another school in a different state or district or whatever. And it's just so strong, it's blowing the phone out of my head. And it basically is just a way to compete against people who are not in your immediate vicinity. And that's good because you get to branch out and play people who, are of a higher level than just those people who live around you. Now, you may get lucky and go to a high school or a public high school where it's traditionally very well known for sports, which attracts talent from other parts of the state, which in turn makes it like a bigger draw, and you get somehow lucky and get bankrolled to go play other schools, but chances are that isn't going to happen. I'm going on a weird sports tangent here, but the point is, the show is realistic to the point where I kind of get questionable as to how successful it's actually going to be, because the director, this is like his brainchild. He wanted to make this, that's why he made it. And he's been out of directing for a long time now. So for him to come back and make this at all says to me that there's really a story that he wants to tell behind this. And clearly from the first couple of episodes, we see that there's some kind of social message that he wants to send as well, of acceptance, of reaching out to your fellow man and just like being understanding about their situation and not so much worrying about the details or why people do the things that they do, and trying to understand what motivates them to be the person that they are, I think is the message at the end of it. And while that is like a commendable thing, you can actually do that without having to be so self-conscious about it, which is what people like us have to worry about, is that if you come off to somebody and just tell them that hey, like, what's happening, when someone gets angry and like try to understand where they're coming from, it comes across as condescending. But Kazuki, Akane, of course, these are middle schoolers, so for them it's easier for them to be more sincere and accepting of the people around them than it might be for someone in adulthood. And I think he also tackles that in a way, because he is able to express that, or he chooses to use the setting of middle school specifically in this show, because I think if it was high school, somebody like Itsuki, like we saw in this episode, wouldn't be as willing to change or willing to accept a new transfer student who just comes out of nowhere, because there's 3 more years of malice and kind of malcontent behind the kind of hard defense mechanism that he does have. But with middle school, he's still early enough to where he can change, and his personality is still pliable and willing to accept that change. And it's not kind of like a host versus graft disease where the host just rejects whatever change you're willing to give it. This might be weird, but the point that I'm trying to make is this show tackles like in the same way that I think Beastars does. And the Beastar video should have come out one day earlier than this video. But the point is, they both try to tackle the same situation, but they approach it from very different angles. And I think at the end of the day, they both give a pretty unique view into activities at a high school level. One is in middle school, obviously, but one chooses to do it from like a more vague, abstract way, and one chooses to do it from I think an equally valid kind of depth-wise way, but it chooses to tackle it with talking about familial situations that are out of the ordinary and maybe not so common in Japan, or maybe the people aren't willing to talk about in the media, whereas Beastars kind of also does that, but it does it with dynamics of people doing things that they normally don't do. Like we see the bunny being something that people don't want to talk about. We see Legosi like being something that people generally don't think he is. So it's the concept of playing against type versus showing things that generally aren't seen, I think, is the difference between the two shows. And both of them are very interesting to me anyway, in that sense. That being said, I don't know if I'm going to continue watching No Guns Life and Kabukicho Sherlock. There's nothing wrong with them per se. It's just that I find these other shows more interesting. And as you can tell from the cell phone recorded outro of this show, I don't exactly have the ability to record 7 or 8 shows per week. That being said, I think we'll just continue with tried and true Hoshiai no Sora, Beastars, and Ascendance of a Bookworm on Wednesdays. But that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm sorry for the bad audio, and I'll see you next time.